Welcome, everyone. Before we get started today, just a few housekeeping items. We will have a Q&A at the end of the presentation. You can ask your questions in the chat or raise your hands. Raise your hand to be unmuted. Also note that we are recording this presentation so you can access it later. This is the first in a three-part educational series, so we hope to see you on next month's as well. We're excited to have Jim McBrayer, the CEO of McBrayer Associates, with us here to talk growth strategies with you. Jim started his career in outside sales for PPG Industries, and his claim to fame as a salesperson is selling the largest account in company's history. He left PPG after 20 years to pursue his passion for helping others optimize their sales effectiveness by launching his own sales training company, McBrayer Associates. Jim and his team have helped organizations in the finishing industries exceed their revenue goals. Thanks for being here with us today, Jim.
Yep. Thanks, John. Thanks for the introduction, guys. I'm very excited to be here today. My objective today is to bring tremendous amount of value to you in the 1 hour we had together. So I'm not going to try to sell you anything. There's no kind of call to action or anything like that. It's bringing you value so that if there is enough here, that maybe sometime in the future you say, you know what, I want to talk to that guy, see if there's something else you might be able to help us with. So today, the first of three is the 4 growth strategies you probably don't know about. And because we want to over deliver, we're actually going to give you 5, right? And so if I'm you, I'm sitting there thinking, okay, sounds okay, but is this right for me? So we kind of put together this quick slide. This is right for you. This webinar and this series is right for you if one of these 5 things hits home, the shoe fits. So if you want to grow, to have confidence, you can generate profitable recurring revenue, but you don't want to hire more estimators just to quote more work. Like I don't want to just get busier, right? I want to make things really happen. Second, you're growth oriented. Realize that choosing to do nothing results not in remaining the same size, but in loss of revenue. I hear that a lot of times from finishing contractors, which is, there's a sweet spot. Jim, we've been bigger before, but we were not necessarily more profitable. So we want to stay kind of right here. And that's not an option. And it's not an option because the world is static. It's not static. And, if you're either growing or you're not, I think Joe Paterno said, you're either getting better or you're getting worse. And we're not staying the same. And I'm a little bit deeper with that in just a second. Number 3, you want to convert winning a job into winning a long-term customer, a relationship that values you more than just the low bid. Going back to that recurring revenue theme. Number 4, when you realize that your project manager's roles have shifted more to business development than running the job, that relationships are more important to recurring revenue than the quality control. I was with a contractor last week, commercial contractor, very much like you guys, drywall, painting, those type things. And we were a group of about 8 project managers. And the comment was made from this one guy that's been a project manager for 10, 15 years, I think, which was when I came into project management, the responsibilities at that time are 180 degrees of what they are now. Back then, it was really about running the project. Well, a lot of that work is subbed right now, and it's about who owns the relationship. So sometimes I use the word salesperson, think project manager. Who's the business development person? Sometimes it's an estimator, but it's usually project managers in your field. And that's what we're talking about in order to sustain growth with recurring revenue. It's about those project managers. And then 5th, when leadership has determined that new business development should be their key initiative, but without some type of change in either structure, strategy, or execution, they're unlikely to succeed. So these are some of the current customers that I have, and I'm showing you this. Most of our business is in the paint, coatings, drywall, finishing sector, but not all of it. So that the customers that lawnmower customers or distributors, I'm not showing them here. I'm showing you some of the brands that we work with that I hope will resonate with you from some of the key manufacturers like PPG and Benjamin Moore, Miller Paint Company out on the West Coast. So we're in North America. We do work in Canada and all across the States. Some of the contractors that would be similar to you, A&K Painting is in Charlotte, North Carolina. Leach Painting Company, which is part of the FCA, is in St. Louis. Hester's in Chicago. I'm in Atlanta, and that's home for me. Harrison Contracting, Rosing Paint, Specialty Finishes, they're all in Atlanta. So that's just a little bit of, are you in the right place type thing. Well, that's my ideal customer profile, people like you. So we've all heard the dismal success rate of startup companies. And so here it is. Companies that started 5 years ago, about only 20% of them made it till today. It doesn't get any better though. According to Michael Gerber in the E-Myth, E standing for entrepreneurship, of the ones that made it 5 years, only 20% of them are going to make it the next 5 years. So if you kind of do the math, if you backed up 10 years ago into the companies that started 10 years ago, there's only about 4% of those companies still around. I mean, even in business, I don't mean that 4% thriving. I mean, 4% surviving. And the reason why there's such a high failure rate is the leaders, the founders, take their eye off acquiring customers and retaining customers. And when you lose sight of that, businesses fail. They fail pretty quickly. And so when I think about the strategies, most organizations do not have strategies to grow. If they're not growing, it's one of three reasons. Either number one, they don't have the right people. They don't have good enough people. I rarely find that. It's usually the people are at least good enough, if not really good. A second is they don't have a strategy for growth, or they don't have a very good strategy. We do find that. But even if they do have a strategy, then it boils down to, are they able to execute? So it's always one of those three things, and that's what we're going to address today. So part of the culprit is this thing called customer churn. And so I don't know if you're familiar with that term or not, but it's really the attrition rate. So it's about the definition of customer churn is the monthly recurring revenue lost. And in most industries, an acceptable rate of churn is 5 to 7%. So think about that for a second. So at the end of every year, you get 5 to 7% that's chopped off. Like that's not going to repeat. That's just normal attrition. So if you're one of those people saying, well, we're just going to stay where we are, that's the reason I'm saying you can't. You can't stay without some type of strategy. So the one theme you'll hear consistently through today and the next two sessions is one of being intentional, about being deliberate. So when you realize that you're going to lose business just because of attrition, some of your customers are just going to go out of business, or you're going to have an off year because maybe some of your bigger customers had an off year, right? Maybe they didn't have a growth strategy or at least a sustainable one. And other people are just downsizing. And why this is so important, why customer churn is so important and retention is so important, is it's a lot more profitable to keep a customer than to land a new one. For a lot of contractors, their strategy for landing new business is to go low. Right? Let's go real low, so low that they got to award us the business, and then we'll work on getting our profitability up as we get going. Where if you're replacing profitable business, good business, because of attrition, you have to replace some of that. If you're replacing it at low bid stuff, well, that didn't work out very well for us. And another reason that we will lose customers is some customers just value low price more than your relationship or the value that you think you're bringing. And so part of our job is to kind of change that, to raise their valuation of the relationship. So I love this quote by Casey Stengel, longtime New York Yankees manager, legendary, if you will. He said, there's three kinds of people in the world. There are those that make things happen. So those would be people with a strategy that's executed. So that's the first kind of people, those that make things happen. The second kind is those that watch things happen. And the third type are those that say, what just happened? Right? So again, the theme being deliberate and being in that first category of making things happen. So all I'm asking for this webinar today, because I'm not going to be asking a call to action or anything like that, is just be open-minded. Just be open-minded to some of the things I'm talking about. No need to be defensive. I'm not asking you to do anything, but am I talking to you? Right? Does the shoe fit? I love this quote by John Maxwell. He's a consultant in Atlanta. He said, everybody wants to change, but nobody wants to change. Everybody wants change, but nobody wants to change. So we all want more of the good stuff and less of the bad stuff. We all want better relationships. We want to be more healthy. We want to have better customers, more profitable customers. We want less of the stress and the overwhelm. So when you think about that, nobody everybody, we want these things, but are we willing to do the things that we have to do to make that happen? I think it was Les Brown that said, in order to achieve something you never achieved before, you have to do things you've never done before. So whatever your goals are loftier than what you're currently achieving, right? Whatever your vision is for your organization, where you want to be 10 years from now. Well, hopefully it's not where I am today, right? We want to grow. So there's kind of three ways to make that happen. We either have to do things we've never done before, or the things that we're doing now that work, we got to do it more frequently. Or the third way is we've got to do it more skillfully. We got to do it better. That's the only way that we can grow our business and scale our business. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. Referring back to Michael Gerber again, with entrepreneurships and businesses, and especially small businesses, what we're trying to do as owners and leaders of our business is get to the point that we're working on our business much more than we're working in our business. And in order to do that, it's our responsibility as the leaders to influence the change that nobody else wants to do, right? That our employees, that our subcontractors, whoever we're going to. So I don't know if you guys are familiar with the book from Jim Collins, Good to Great, but one of the famous quotes that came out of that book was, Jim Collins says, you got to get the right people on the bus, get the wrong people off the bus. And then once you got the right people on the bus and the wrong people off the bus, get the right people in the right seats. So the idea is it starts with who, right? Then what, and then how. And we're going to cover kind of those three things today. And starting with the who, getting the right people on the bus, we're going to discuss this in two different ways. First, internally are the people working with us and for us, employees, subcontractors, associates. And then in a few minutes, we're going to get to externally, which is the customers. But starting internally with the customers. So I don't know if you guys have seen this graph before. It's called the unattainable triangle. The first time I ever saw it, I was in the lumber yard. Above the counter, there was a placard that said, we have the absolute highest quality products, we have the best customer service, and we have the lowest prices. And then it said, pick any two of the three. So it's a tongue-in-cheek way of saying, no, we don't have all three of those things. No one competitor has these three advantages consistently, because if they did, you wouldn't have any competition to put everybody out of business. So I'm showing you this just to say, low bid, price, service, product, what the finished product looks like, those type things. When it comes to business sales, these are three of the top four criteria that your customers are using to decide who to award their business with. I'm going to show you how they rank in just a second. These are three of the top four. None of them are number one. So here's the breakdown. Number one is the competency of the salesperson at 39%. Number two is a distant number two. It's the total solution. That can be convenience and things like that. Product quality is number three, and low bid is fourth at 18%. So the competency of your project manager, it's somebody in the organization. People buy from people. And it's somebody. I don't care if it's the painter, the drywall guy, the delivery guy, but there's somebody that we value, and that's the reason that we're buying from that particular person. So we ask project managers, salespeople, different industries. We ask them, like, what would you like to get better at? What do you want to know more about? What's kind of holding you back? What's the obstacle? And here's what we heard. First, a defined strategic plan for a sit-down opening discussion with a target, one where I feel confident that I can present and change the discussion from low bid to performance and service. In other words, what they're saying is, I want to have a meeting with somebody that I gain so much trust and competency that they're even down the palm of my hand. That's what we all want. Second, to be able to sell our difference when we're fighting competitive offers where we don't have the lowest bid. Third, to create more customers that trust us versus doing the one bid, right? The one and done bid. And then third, how can I get in a room with decision makers? When it comes to contractors, finishing contractors, one of the biggest issues that we hear is, Jim, our customers, contractors or DTOs, direct to owners, they don't want to meet with us face to face, right? So we got to give them a very good reason to want to meet with us. You're not going to be very successful. You're not going to optimize your growth if all you're doing is take off bids and emailing it. If you take nothing else from this webinar, you got to have face-to-face. You got to have a relationship. So not only do we ask the customers this, but we also sent them our customers and our prospective customers, project managers, salespeople. We send them a list of about 20 activities that most project managers do. And we ask them to tell us how much time they spend doing each of those things. And all these activities have to add up to 100%. And I'm going to show you the results that we got. I think it's pretty eye-opening. So first of all, kind of lay out the grid of all the things we asked them, those 20 activities, those 20 tasks. We did this grid and we said, okay, on the vertical axis, some of these are very high value activities and some of them are low value activities. On the horizontal axis, we said, well, some of them happens, with the customer interfacing, face-to-face, which by the way, as a business development person, our preference is to be face-to-face. I know it's not always a customer's preference, but it's our preference. Here's the pecking order. Face-to-face is best. Second best is what we're doing here, a virtual call, because at least you can see and you can see the body language. You can get tone. You can see how well they're engaged. Third best is the telephone. And the worst is the email, because you lose everything there. So on the horizontal axis, that's the reason we're asking, like, does this happen in front of the customer? Any of those things we call customer interface, including text. Anything that's real time is customer interfacing. And then on the far right-hand side is like, this does not happen in front of the customer. And then we just kind of gridded that out, right? And so we're saying, hey, this is quadrant 1, quadrant 2, 3, and 4. And so quadrant 1, we're saying is a high value activity, and it also happens in front of the customer. And so on. Quadrant 2 would be high value activities that don't happen in front of the customer, and so on. So these are some of the examples of high value activities that happen in front of the customer. Any kind of prospecting, any kind of messaging, prospecting's dropping in, emailing, calling them, establishing a relationship, needs discovery, we're asking questions, presenting solutions, kind of our proposal, all that's quadrant 1. The high value happens with the customer. Quadrant 2, in essence, is all the preparation for quadrant 1. So it's a high value activity, just as important as a quadrant 1, but it doesn't happen in front of the customer. Planning, preparation, all those type things. Quadrant 3, so you're thinking about, well, what's a low value activity that happens in front of the customer, unfortunately, and the donut drops at the top of the list. So most of us instinctively know, okay, I know what that is. The donut drops when we just drop off donuts, and that's all. So there's nothing wrong with dropping off donuts. We've all done it. There's nothing wrong with it. Customers prefer it. Some customers really like it. The only problem with a donut drop could be your expectations. If you think people are going to give you a $200,000 job because you dropped off $10 with the donuts, it's the wrong expectation. So there's nothing wrong with doing that other than you missed a great opportunity. But the 3 most common problems, right, that when we're in front of the customer and we kind of blow it as a business development person is we're having the wrong conversations, or we're having the right conversations with the wrong people, or we're not having any kind of persuasive conversations. We're not doing anything that's business development oriented. We're doing customer service or we're doing technical service. I know that's part of the job. Your job as a project manager is part of the job, but it's not part of growth. It doesn't necessarily help us grow. And then quadrant 4, again, low value activities, not from the customer, windshield time, travel time, administrative work, internal meetings, checking email, and so on. So the reason I'm sharing all this with you and what I'm building to is where are project managers spending their time? So that first category that we said was so important, quadrant 1, they spend 10% of their time there. And we could stop the webinar at that point. It's like, well, there's the problem, right? They're not in position to be successful. Either they're not getting in position or we're not allowing them to get in position, right? In front of the customer with something good to talk about. Think about it that way. Quadrant 2, high value activity that doesn't have in front of the customer. They spend 20% of their time in preparation, 30% of their time in front of the customer wasting time, and 40% of their time in quadrant 4. So, okay, well, I think we see the issue. So part of what you're going to see here is going to help them move a lot. Just think if they spent 20% of their time in quadrant 1, double their effectiveness if they're doing the right things. So let's move from internal to external. And we're talking about getting the right customers on the bus and getting the wrong customers off the bus. And once we have them on the bus, the right customers, like now how do we get them in the right seat? That's where we're going here. So one of the things we do when we're engaging with people like you, our clients, some of the ones I just showed you, is we take the customer list and we say, go to about your top 30 customers, and not just for the last few months, but for 3 years. So we can see where we're tracking over the last 3 years. And we say, the first thing we're looking for is who are your absolute best customers. Well, what's the criteria for that? And it's a little bit different for every client, what they value the most, but it usually has something to do with their size, when they're pretty big, okay, their profitability, we're actually making decent money on them. And the third one is usually some kind of degree of difficulty, right? It's like they're not hard to deal with. So the categories, the first one is preach to the converted. The converted are your best customers, right? By the standards, whatever the criteria that you set. And our strategy is a retention strategy. So we have to deliberately have a strategy so your best customers are somebody else's targets. There's somebody else, and never forget about that, right? So this we have a strategy for how do you do that? How do you put a fence around your best customers so that your competition can't get to them? But understanding who they are first. The second category is what we call cut the time wasters. So one of the biggest issues when I'm engaging my clients is like, hey, we want to grow, but we just don't have a whole lot of extra time. Time is the one thing that life is made of, and we don't have a lot of extra of that. How do we do that? Where do we get the time? We get the time from stop wasting your time with customers that are not giving you any business. We call that the people they need a third bid. And you can go back and say, well, we're spending a lot of time doing takeoffs, submittals, actually submitting quotes, bids, and everything else. And some of these customers are just not ever giving us any work. And kind of the simple strategy for that is just kind of an ultimatum. We're doing it in a positive way, but we're in essence going to these people and saying, look, we've been quoting this work and we're not getting anything from you. So kind of help me understand why I should keep doing, why I just need a third bid. Well, it cost us money to do this, so stop doing it. Third, grow where you're planted. So this is similar to the first one in the sense that these are customers that are buying from you, but they're not your best. So they're really good customers. They're maybe not your biggest or the most profitable, maybe a little bit harder to deal with. And the opportunity there is to increase your share of wallet. So for some of these customers that are not your best, maybe your best are giving you 50% of their business, maybe 100% of their business. They're giving to you. Well, that number 3 here, grow where you're planted, maybe they're giving you 15 to 20% of their business. And we want 100% of their business to grow with an existing customer. But in some cases, they won't give you 100% of their business. They don't want all their eggs in one basket. So, but you can move. You can move up. I'm not saying you will, but you can move up with these people from 20% market share of wallet to maybe 40% share of wallet. It's huge. You can double your business with some of the people you're doing business with right now if you're intentional about who they are, putting them in the right category, and then having a strategy, which I'm going to share with you in a minute, of how to do that. The fourth category is to follow the money. Wayne Gretzky, the legendary hockey player, says you don't skate to where the puck is, you skate to where the puck is going to be. And so follow the money is not skating to where what's busy now, right? What segments? This is all about segmentation. So if you think about your business, like where do you get business from now? And then what's going to be hot? What segments are going to be hot in the future? If we went back 24 months ago and we had a crystal ball and we said, this COVID thing is going to come. And when it comes, there's lots of businesses that like Amazon, anything that involves warehouses, it's like people are not going to be going and seeing people. They want things shipped to their door. And so if you realize that and say, well, there's going to be a boom in warehousing, well, that's tilt-up type construction. It's like, do you specialize in that? You could do it. For most of you guys, you can do that kind of work, but it's like trying to figure out what's going to be the next hot thing. Follow the money. And then the fifth one is gain new business. For most people, when you think about business development, this is the one category that most people think that's the only way to grow. And that's fifth on the list, which is get more customers. Right. So the thing about getting more customers is you're taking it from somebody else. You're taking it from the incumbent. Somebody already has that, like a boxer, right? If you're going up against a champion, you got to knock them out. So that is a way to grow. You should be using all these strategies, all these categories to define who you're going after. So that number 5, those are your targets. Those are your prospects. So we asked your customers, right? When did, and people that are like your customers, when will you agree to take a meeting? Again, one of the things that we're hearing from project managers, these guys don't have time to meet with us. They don't want to meet with us. Well, here's when they will meet with you. Number one, when they want to expand their product offering or entertain new bidders. Number two, when their current supplier, your competition's having any kind of issues. Number three, when they're doing a performance, like a contractor review. Number four, they're having problems. Maybe not their contractor, but they're having some issues and they're wondering, can you help them figure that out? And number five, when they have different ideas about how to solve some of these problems. So these five, these are reactive. You think about it this way, this is when the customer's calling us. So some of my clients tell me, hey, Jim, when these things are happening, we're pretty good. We're pretty good at landing that business. And I kind of chuckle, it's like, who's not, right? When the customer's reaching out and calling us saying, hey, one of these things is happening and we're just being reactive, that's kind of like if you're going fishing and the fish are jumping in the boat, literally jumping in the boat. It's like, well, we're pretty good at grabbing them and putting them in the live well. It's like, well, that's the easy part. The sixth one here, this is proactive. This is when we're reaching out with relevant information to their challenges or their priorities. That's being intentional. These first five is being reactionary. So if you want to grow, you have to have strategies that fall into that sixth bucket, which is us being deliberate and knowing how to reach out and the messaging that's going to resonate with people that would want to talk to us. And when we're doing that, because I've already done some of that, and I'm going to show you what I was doing 25 minutes ago when I first started. I'm trying to resonate with you guys, and that's what a good brand does, right? A good brand not only attracts the right types of customers, but it repels those that are not the right type of customer. So you're not trying to be everything to everybody because you can't. And you'll be lukewarm and they'll spit you out and you won't win anybody. You have to really understand what your niche is by understanding who your customers are and what their biggest issues are. So if you think about the sales process, we work really hard to make this really simple. And what we're doing here is saying, okay, things that are in our pipeline or our sales funnel, they are either at the top of the funnel, the middle of the funnel, or the bottom of the funnel. And by the way, if they're not in the pipeline, they're up here in the cloud, those are leads, right? So these leads, these prospects, if people don't even know about us, they don't know that we're targeting them, that's where they are. We never even met with them before. So the most common mistake that we make as business development people, again, project managers, salespeople, estimators, is we always assume that our customer, our prospect, is always in the bottom of the funnel, that they're looking for a solution. And they're hardly ever in the bottom of the funnel. And so if we think they're in the bottom of the funnel, we're doing what they call in the industry, we're showing up and we're throwing up. We're showing up and saying, here's why we're the best. And it's a big turnoff. So if you think about that, and what we're going to be focusing on for the rest of our 30 minutes that we have together is the middle of the funnel is all about positioning yourself as a consultant when you're asking questions. That's like when they're calling you up saying, here are my problems. Then at that time, you're kind of already in the middle of the funnel. That's the reason it's so easy. You're halfway done. The hard part is getting the meeting to begin with, right? I mean, ask the project manager. That's the struggle. Most sales training, and there's three things that we do with our business. We do sales training. We do one-on-one performance coaching. It kind of follows the sales training. We work with project managers one-on-one about business development, and then we do consulting, especially with businesses like yours. So those are the three things that we do. And for most salespeople, this is the issue that we hear. Our project managers is, I don't have the right messaging to get the meeting. So I'm going to show you what that is. The kind of messaging to get the meeting. Like once you get the meeting, again, the tendency is to show up and tell them how great you are, and it doesn't work. So what we want to realize is you're at the top of the funnel, kind of that first meeting, we're at the top of the funnel. What do we talk to them about? Right? Because you got to earn the right, you got to get that trust so that you earn the right to move to the middle of the funnel, which is asking the questions. You can't show up and start selling, nor can you show up and start interrogating them with a bunch of questions if they don't trust you. They're just not going to give you good answers. So what we're looking for here is how do you get meetings? And then when you get the meetings, what do you talk to these people about? And so 80% 80%, that's the percentage of decision makers that said they would take a meeting with an outside supplier when it's relevant to their priorities. So think about this. I was telling you earlier that business-to-business customers, their number one criteria on who they're going to buy from is the competency of the person that they're dealing with, right? It's much higher than price. It's over double the priority of price. It's more important than the quality of the product or the total solution. So we say, okay, it's that person. If it's a person, then what is it in particular that they're looking for to distinguish between one person and the next person? So here's some research that was done just a few years ago by this guy, Dixon and Adamson. And they took business development people, project managers, and they said that we have a dominant selling style, if you will, not according to us, but according to our customers. So imagine we went out and we polled all your customers, and said, what bucket would you put Joe or Don or whoever's on the call or Jim? What bucket would you put us in? So for all of us, as I'm going through this, we probably dabble in all 5 buckets, but according to our customers, we have a dominant selling style. I won't spend a lot of time with this, but, and by the way, I'm going to send you all these slides. So if you're taking notes, that's great, but everything you see, you're going to have. I'm going to send you the PDF of this. The first one's the hard worker. We outwork everybody else. The second one's the challenger. And the challenger means we're showing up with a strategy that they're interested in. It's not about trying to sell our goods and services. The third is the relationship builder, right? We're making friends with anybody. We're getting in and we're meeting everyone in their organization. The third is the lone wolf. They kind of have their own intuition of how they go about doing the business. And the third is more of a technical person. It's like they can solve problems technically, from the product to the application or whatever it may be. So as you think about these, and think about what bucket would your customers put you in? Because what I'm going to show you next is which one they buy from. And it's probably going to surprise you. So first of all, in this slide, the light color is where the majority of the salespeople or project managers are, according to the customer. So the biggest category, they say most salespeople are relationship salespeople. That's where the bulk is. 14% is in problem solver, 26% is in the relationship builder. But the one they buy from is in the dark blue. And so the one they buy the least from is the relationship builder. So most business development project managers, like, I'm gonna be friends with them, right? I'm gonna take them golfing and take them to the ball game, take them to lunch, tell jokes, talk about Seinfeld stuff. Seinfeld stuff's about nothing, if you ever remember the show. And say, they don't buy that much from people like that. They buy from people that are coming in and talking to them about something that resonates with them, right? This is some of my challenges, my priorities. When you're promising to come talk about that, not talk about yourself, think about it that way. When we're meeting with someone, what we're promising to do to get the meeting is to talk to them about their industry, about them. But when we show up and we talk about us, instead of talking about them, it's a big turnoff. So these are the strategies, the 4+1. These are the growth strategies you probably don't know about. Some of them you're actually probably doing. You maybe didn't think it was a strategy, and maybe you're not doing it as frequently as you should. So the first one is the strategic introduction. The second one is the capabilities briefing. It's like, Jim, I don't know what that is. I'm going to tell you what that is. The third one's a bounce meeting. Same thing. The fourth one's executive roundtable, and the fifth one's a signature talk. So we're going to start at the top, a strategic introduction. So you've probably done this before. You probably just didn't call it a strategic introduction. And all it is very simple. We're trying to meet somebody and they don't know us and they're not giving us a meeting. So sometimes if you stop and think, I want to meet with Bob, and Bob is my ideal customer. Profile. Like I think I could really help Bob, but he doesn't know me. That's even worse, me not knowing him. He don't know me. So who do I know? Well, I know John. And if John knows Bob, and they got a great relationship, they trust each other. And John trusts me because I've done work with John before. So a strategic introduction, I've done this already today, this morning. This is very powerful. So all we're doing, I'll come back to the slide. All we're doing is I would be talking to John and bring up the conversation about how things going with our work. Are you happy? If the answer is no, I didn't really want to hear that, but you did need to hear that. didn't want to, but I need to hear it so I can fix it. But if the answer is yes, it's like, okay, why? You know, I mean, why do you like doing business with me? And it, you know, the fact that I'm a good guy, that ain't good enough. It's got to be performance driven. Like, what's the metric? What are you looking at that you continue to give me business? What do you like about it? Which we should all be doing, asking our best customers. There's no saying, if you want to know what business you're really in, ask your customers, because it may not be exactly what you thought. We do a real good job of beating ourselves up when we don't win a job or we don't win a customer. Like, what did we do wrong? But if we would flip that and say, you know, when we do win a customer, when customers don't award us the work and we go ask them, why do we not get the work? Quite frankly, they don't want to answer that question. So they usually tell you, oh, it's just price. You just want a low bid. Sometimes it's true. Most of the time it's not, right? They don't want to, you know, bust your bubble. But when somebody gives you the work and you're asking them, why'd you give me the work? They're more than happy to tell you that. And we need to know that, because whatever it is they're telling us or why they're giving us the work, that's the one thing we can't drop the ball on. We got to deliver on what they said was so important. So it's the same concept if you were doing a demo for somebody. When demos are done poorly and they don't work out, it's like, well, I'm just going to demo it and you see if you see anything you like. That's the wrong way to do it. The right way is, what are we trying to demonstrate? Speed, quality. What are you looking for? How are you going to measure that? What's a good number? If we exceed your number, what should we expect? Because if the answer is nothing, then why would you do the demo? So we're kind of doing the same thing with our existing customer. Like, what is it that's so good about it, right? And then we're going back and saying, hey, would you mind introducing me to John? Just send an email. That's what tends to work best in today's technology. Would you send an email to John, just introducing him to me and tell him what you just told me about where I helped you specifically in performance, and then just leave it to us to connect. And what I usually do when that happens, because he's sending it to John and to me at the same time, we're on the same email, I can see that he sent it. I see exactly what it says. I usually wait 24 to 48 hours to give Bob a chance to respond. And if he doesn't respond, that's fine. I'll respond, copy everybody, and just say, hey, listen, I'm following up on what John said. Would you be receptive to an introductory call? If they're not, they're not, right? But that's a very high probability of getting a success rate. So when you think about cold calling, we should always be cold calling. If you think about that funnel, we should always be planting seeds. We're feeding the funnel constantly. You've got to cold call. Everything's not going to be warm. So cold calling, the success rate in cold calling, and when I say success rate, I'm not talking success of closing the business or winning the business. The success rate of just getting a meeting. Now, we're a long ways from winning the business, but we're going to have a meeting first. It's anywhere from 0.5 point to 5%. So it's anywhere from 1 to 20 or 1 to 200 of somebody agreeing to meet with you. If you can personalize it, it jumps to 10 to 15%. Now, what do I mean by personalization? Well, when you send a blast email, that's the opposite of personalization. People can tell, it's like you sent this to 1,000 different people. It's broad brush. It's not nearly as effective. It's a cold call. Personalization, we teach 3 ways to personalize your messages. And first of all, there's 3 vehicles that we use most often. One is face-to-face, we drop in on somebody. Second is we call them on the phone when we're prospecting. And third is email. So different customers have different preferences, so we use all 3. It's, again, back to the fishing metaphor. We don't know what the fish is going to bite on, so we'll put 3 different lures out there. These are the highest probability. But when we're personalizing our messages, there's 3 ways to do that. The first one is a common connection, and we put it in the subject line. Because second to who it's from, that's the number 2 thing people look to, is like, well, what's the subject line? It's like the headline of an article. It's like, I know Bob, or I know John, and he said, you know, it'd be good for us to talk. It's not going to get you the meeting, but it's going to at least get them to open the email or accept your phone call. So that's the first way to personalize. The second way is what we call a social conversation. So a social conversation is something that you heard about them, right? It's like something's not working, they're having some issues about this or whatever. And the third is a trigger event. So a trigger event is something that happened to the person that you're calling or to their organization. Like they just won a big contract, or they just made an acquisition, or they just hired somebody in a prominent position. So all those are personalization. So the point is, like, sometimes you can take these cold calls and find some way to personalize by doing just 3 to 4 minutes of research, and your probabilities just jump orders of magnitude. And then the third way is the way that I'm preaching right now, strategic introductions, a direct introduction. Industry-wide is about 15 to 20%. I would say for me personally, it's about 75%. When I have someone send that email, about 75% of the time I get a meeting. Most of the time it's a virtual meeting like this, and sometimes it's face-to-face, sometimes it's a phone call. So that's strategic introductions. And when we're doing the strategic introduction, it already kind of begs the question, which is, what's the next step, right? So, hey, you introduced us, right? Okay, Jim, that's great. What do you want? What I want is to do a capabilities briefing. And that's the second thing I'm gonna get into. But before I get there, strategic introductions work. When you think about those 5 categories that I gave you of customers, they work for all of them except the one that's you don't want to meet with anyway, where you're just kind of the third bidder and you're trying to cut your losses. It works in every other category. So what's a capabilities briefing? That's their second one we want to talk about. So a capabilities briefing is not salesy, right? It's not pushy. All you're trying to do with a capabilities briefing is say, let me be a hip pocket resource for you in case you ever need somebody like me. You don't have to search for them. I'm not going to try to sell you. I'm not going to try to push anything. I just want to frame the conversation and to just share some information to bring a lot of value to you. So I mentioned it earlier, so I'm going to go back. This is the way I led off our call today. The first slide, well, after the title slide, the first slide that I showed you was this slide. So I'm not going to show it to you again. I'm showing it to you now to say this should look familiar. That's the reason I put the painter on the side, so make it more recognizable. And I went through this, if this is right to you. And the reason you do that is customers buy when, W-H-E-N. They buy when, they don't buy what. Like when something's going on. And so what I was doing is, here's 5 things that may be going on with your business. If one of those 5 things are going on, if you want to have an introductory call with me, 30 minutes, maybe I can help you get going. And then if you need my services down the road, that'd be great. But if you don't, that's okay too. It didn't cost you anything. Maybe I can help you a little bit more. And if none of these things do resonate, well, that's fine. There's no need me wasting your time or you wasting mine. The third slide that I showed you were the brands that I worked with. So I'm showing you this just to say, hey, this dog eats its own dog food, right? So like I'm showing you and telling you this is what works. I've already been using it. So that is the second strategy. The third strategy is a bounce meeting. And what the heck is that? I'm going to show you there's different types of bounce meetings. But the reason I'm showing you this guy that's playing billiards, he's playing pool, is it dawned on me one day I was watching ESPN and it had a pool shark there and he had an easy shot. I'm not much of a pool player, but this guy had like 6-inch corner pocket. It's like, I can make that. And he takes like 4 or 5 minutes studying the table before he even attempts the shot. I don't know what's taking him so long. That's the only ball, it's the only shot he's got. Well, he makes the shot, sure enough, and the ball hits on 3 different railings and ends up with another easy shot. I'm thinking, this guy's so lucky, right? And he does that, like 8 times and runs the table. And at some point it dawned on me, it's like, he's not lucky, he's setting the table. It's literally what he's doing. Well, sales, business development is the same idea. Is you have to be 1 to 2, 3 steps ahead of like, what are you doing? How are you setting up the next sale? It's always about setting up the next thing to come. So when you think about that, and you can think about it like a demo, or you just won a job with a customer. And so even if it's an existing customer, it's a first-time job that you won, we want to have a face-to-face. If you can't get face-to-face, you got to get the pecking order virtual. And we want to get into this specific job. What's so important about this specific job? What are you looking to do, right? Well, not everything. What's the most important things? Why is that so important? How are you going to measure that? What we're trying to set up when we win the job is the bounce meeting. So we want to meet with you either at the end of the job or at some stage of the job or multiple stages of the job. We want to set a meeting right now today for a future meeting for me to review with you how we're doing on these particular criteria and how we're measuring that. It's going to be very surprising for your customers like general contractors to say, you actually want to meet with me to talk about that before, because most people are trying to hide, right? Say, well, let's get it fixed, let's get it fixed. And yeah, we do want to meet with them for all the things we just said, but we also want to meet with them so that we're building a relationship and we're able to ask them, what else you got going on? What's coming down the pipe? This is how we get in front of them. One of the biggest challenges we have as project managers, like they want to meet with me. These are the type of things that have a high probability of getting the meeting. So what's so important about the job? How are we going to measure it? What is the actual benchmark? How are we going to measure it, and what's good? And then what's better than good? And if it's better than good, what should I expect? What do you mean, what should you expect? A pat on the back? No. I mean, I would expect you to give me more work, right? I mean, I'm not demanding it. It's not contractual, but that's what a bounce meeting is. So I said there's several different ways. One of them I'm just describing. It's like, I'm going to visit with you at this stage of the job to show you what's going so well, and also some of the issues we've run into and what we're doing to fix it. And we're going to keep communicating with you. So some of the other bounce meetings can be a case study. So I'm showing you a case study here, and it's not a Harvard Review 20-page scientific case study. And that's because clients like you and clients like your customers don't want to sit through a 20-page deal. This is a 1-page case study. It's an actual case study that I did a couple of years ago. And so my customer, there's 3 buckets to this that you're trying to fill out. What was the challenge, kind of the current situation? What's my solution? How are we going to go about it? And then how did it work out? What's the result? And so for this particular customer, they're in a flat industry. There's market consolidation going on. They were having a reduction in force. They were laying salespeople off, and they needed to grab market share in order to grow. So our solution was to move from a product sale more to customer insights, a name target strategy that we're going to go after to enhance the buying experience. We're going to show them how to do that. And we said, by doing that, we think you're going to win more customers. Yeah, well, how'd that work out? Well, they won a record number of new accounts in the 1 year that I worked with them. They made a successful transition to new business while the industry actually dropped. The industry retracted 1%, right? So it had a smaller pie and they grew 7%. So that's a case study. It's just those three bullet points. What's the challenge? How are you going to solve it? And then how did it work out? You could do this with a job. You could go back and say, this was the challenge of the job. This is what you said was so important. I told you this is how we're going to do it with a lift or ladders or whatever it may be. And this is how it worked out. An ROI is a bounce meeting. So for this particular bounce, the ROI is, what was it before? That's the reason it's so important to get the benchmarks. So this was for project managers on a monthly basis. Per project manager, you guys are getting 4 leads. You're doing $35,000 worth of proposals, and you're winning $10,000, and that's not good enough. And then after we work with you, you get 18 leads, $215,000 of proposals, and you're winning 4 times as much work per project manager per month. Wow, yeah, give me some more work, right? It blew your mind. You were hoping to get from 10,000 to 20,000. We got from 10 to 40. How else can we help you? It gets you that credibility. We got 12 minutes, which is perfect. We're doing great on timing. The 4th strategy is the executive roundtable. I would tell you in the last 18 months to 2 years, this is the one that I'm catching most of the fish with. This works out really well. So what is an executive roundtable? An executive roundtable is when we bring in high caliber executives from different companies, similar type companies. We're bringing their peers into a meeting that we're going to facilitate. Now, one of the reasons this is so powerful is it said now that we're in the connection economy. So once upon a time, we were in the Industrial Revolution with Henry Ford and all that, and then it moved to the knowledge age worker, the information age. Well, now we're in the connection economy. Think Uber, think DoorDash, right? Connecting people. So with that mentality, all we're doing is we're throwing the party and we're getting the right people to show up, and we're asking you to show up. So it's a high level, it's usually owners, presidents, could be facility managers or whatever you're going for. You're going to bring in like people that are like them, that are having the same kind of issues. And the way that you pull this together is you have to get an anchor. And so an anchor is usually a friendly customer, somebody that thinks you guys are dynamite, and you're explaining to them what you're trying to do. You want to pull about 8 executives together. Let's just think it could be direct DTOs, or in this case, let's say general contractors. And so you're bringing maybe the owner, or maybe it's a senior VP. Right. And so you're bringing Joe Blow, that's your contact. You're bringing him in and you're telling what you're doing. Right. So the number one reason that people are going to come to an executive roundtable, the number one reason is who else is going to be there. And that's the reason you start out with a high profile anchor. So even if they don't know the person, they should know the company, know the position, or something like that. And then you're kind of using them as bait, saying, hey, Joe Blow is going to be there, and I'm inviting you and people like you, but we're going to limit it to 8 people. It works best if you're going to do it like at a conference, like at a trade show, where people are traveling to get there anyway. If the trade show starts on Wednesday, they usually start at 9 or 10 o'clock in the morning. This would be the breakfast before everything else starts. So you pull them together for about 2 hours. It's not an elaborate presentation. You're probably going to do a 5-minute presentation. And the 5-minute presentation is just to frame the conversation and to facilitate the conversation, just to keep them on track. It's powerful and it works like crazy. If you want to know more about it, it works in virtually every growth, retention, share of wallet, follow the money, more cost. That's our 10-minute mark. So the 5th one I want to share with you. Well, let me go a little bit more on this one and why this is so important. I did this a little over a year ago. I showed you some of my customers. I do business with quite a few commercial paint contractors, drywall contractors in Atlanta. I have relationships with them because of my days with PPG while I was selling to them. 2 of these guys wanted to start an association. And the association they wanted to start was just, hey, I'd like to see what the other contractors, what are the biggest topics or whatever. And so these 2 guys, the way they got together is one of the customers, well, my customer, asked me to do a strategic introduction. So I taught him how to do it. He goes, hey, would you do it? And would you introduce me to this other contractor? Be more than happy to do that. I put them together. They do business for about 30 minutes and they love it. And then they started talking about, man, would it be great if we could get a bunch of people like us together? And they started talking about I know all of them. It's like, well, being a sales guy, I'm always thinking about what's the next step? So the next step was pulling these guys together. I asked 6 commercial paint contractors to come together. All 6 showed up. There was usually 2 owners that showed up, 12 people invited, 100% attendance. So the first thing that I did is like everybody kind of heard of each other before. Some people actually friends, they knew each other. Other people wouldn't recognize each other on the streets. We pulled them together. We actually had a lunch. And I asked everybody just, introduce yourself, your name, the company you work for, how long you've been in business, and then answer this question. Why did you come? And the first person to answer that question said, I came because all these guys came. And I'm not going to miss that meeting. I don't want them talking about me when I'm not here. And I do want to hear what they're talking about. And then to a person, it was some semblance of the same answer. It's like, because these people are here. So my only point is I can help you pull that together because there are a lot of details about it. It's ultra powerful. And then you can repurpose those meetings. It gives you a reason to reach out to some of the people at the meetings and, I heard you talking about this. You want to talk about it with me? Maybe, maybe not. But you can also take that, repurpose it to the other people you didn't invite and said, hey, we had this group together and this is what they were talking about. It's their biggest challenges. Would you like to hear what they were talking about? Powerful stuff. Okay, our last strategy is a signature talk. And its signature talk lies in what we call the long tail. The long tail is a marketing term. And the marketing term came about that basically says, look, all the messaging, what all your competition's saying is the bulkhead. You all sound the same. It's low bid, it's on time, quality work, all that kind of stuff. The long tail is more about talking to the customers about something they're super interested in. It's a high priority, but they're not talking about it. Not only is your competition not talking about it, they're not talking about it because they don't think it has anything to do with you, but it can have everything to do with you. So I love this quote by Henry Ford. Henry Ford, Ford Motor Company, Model T. He said, if I'd asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. They wouldn't have said the Model T. Steve Jobs said it a different way. People don't know what they want until you show it to them. There's a book that came out a few years ago, probably 10 years ago. It's called The Blue Ocean Strategy. I read a lot. And I think if you read a book and you walk away with one idea that you utilize, it's worth reading the book. So what the book stuck with me was this idea of red ocean, blue ocean. And the red ocean, well, that's where all the competition is, right? That's where all your competition's in the red ocean. That's where all the fish are. All your customers in the red ocean. It's red because it's bloody. The blue ocean, the great news about the blue ocean is there's no competition over there, right? When you're talking about something totally different. Unfortunately, there's no fish over there either until you pull them over. Then once you pull them over with that messaging, just here's the thing. It's always a moving target. You want to be first. If you're first talking about something new, you start capturing that market. Your competition is going to see what you're doing, then they're going to move. And once they move, you got to come with the next thing. That's the whole idea of the blue ocean. So the best example I can think of is the mattress industry, mattress as in the bed and mattress. So it used to be that all the mattresses were sold through department stores, Macy's, Rich's, JCPenney, those guys. And they would only sell it through the main holidays, Memorial Day, Labor Day, those type things at big discounts. And then once upon a time, one of these mattress manufacturers said, hey, let's create a blue ocean. And the blue ocean would be, let's open our own brick and mortar store, go direct to the consumer. It's like, do you think they want it? It's like, I don't know. Our messaging is going to be, you can buy a higher quality product at a better price, and you got the experts dealing with it. Well, it worked. I mean, you look on any corner now, there's 3 or 4 of these mattress companies, and it's not sold as much in the department stores. Okay, so it worked for the first guy, it worked, then everybody else catches on. So he made it blue, it starts getting pink and then red. Then he comes up with the next strategy was the foam mattress. So the foam mattress, hey, sell it online, we can ship it to you through the mail. Go online and look up foam mattresses now. There's like 1,000 manufacturers. So it's been super successful. Everybody will be following the lead. So I live in Atlanta, Georgia. I mentioned that once before. And if you'd asked me, we bought a new mattress about 2 years ago. And if you'd asked me what's important to you about a mattress, I'd have regurgitated what everybody else says, right? All the messaging. I want a firm mattress. I want ones that last a long time. Price is important. Picking up the old, blah, blah, blah. But if you'd asked a better question, and the question being, Jim, in Atlanta, Georgia, what's really important to you about getting a good night's sleep? And the answer is sleeping cool. It's May, we got the air conditioning on. We got the air conditioning on in January, certain days of the month in January and February and December. It gets hot down here. The sleeping cool is a big deal. But what's a mattress have to do with that? That's the reason I wouldn't have brought it up. Well, they started bringing it up. Somebody figured that out. And when they figured it out, it's like, it means everything, right? Just sleep cool. So that's the point that I'm getting at. Let me show you so I don't run out of time on you. This is actually something that I did for one of our clients. It's actually an FCA member about their business. And this was the first slide that they're showing to prospective customers. And it looks kind of like the capabilities briefing, but it's a signature talk. So the 5 times our clients reach out and all they're trying to do is resonate with their general contractor. So they're saying, yeah, okay, yeah. You got it. You understand our business. So to the general contractor, I know you're looking for a low bid, to help you win the work, but you also got to make a profit. So I get that. I mean, you're taking all your different subs, HVAC and all that, and you kind of pull it together. That's where your bid, yeah, okay, get it. And when the schedule's tight, they have to be done on time, no matter what. Yeah. And there's lots of changes to blueprints and everything. And the drawings are probably going to be poor. It's like, yeah, this guy's kind of getting it. He's been there before. That's all we're trying to do with these first 5 slides. Then part of our signature talk, the one we customize for these customers, in short, what they're telling us, Mr. General Contractor, here's what's important: low cost, on time, and quality. So at this point, already like getting them to like, yeah, you get it. Now we're going to do a 180 on them. We're going to kind of pull the rug out from under them and go, what just happened? So that's when we move to, yeah, but what they really want, we find out what you really want is not just a low bid, but that needs to be the price. Yeah, we actually, I know you'll award me the business if I tell you it's a little bid, but if I have a bunch of add-ons and a bunch of extras, we got to keep the cost there so you can make your profit. You can win it and make a profit. It's like, oh yeah, that's true. Or adjust the changes while maintaining costs. There's gonna be a lot of changes, which gives us opportunity to go, that wasn't the scope of work. Price goes up. It's like, yeah, I can't have that. Yeah, you won't get that with us. And the quality of work represents them favorably with their clients. And I'll leave you with this quote, and then we'll go to the Q&A session. I saw this in a barbecue restaurant, kind of put it in perspective. Quote from Benjamin Franklin. He said, the bitterness of poor quality remains long after the sweetness of low price is forgotten. If you eat a barbecue sandwich and it only costs you 50 cents and you get sick later, you won't remember how much it cost you.